live streaming is like clearly everywhere, and there's a lot of good and bad. I'd love to hear your thoughts on both. You decide
Yeah.
where you want to start.
The virtual platform is something that I never thought I would end up doing. I was always big into doing, I wanted to do lots of television. And so I've been blessed that I've done quite a bit of television in the last 4 or 5 years. I don't know if you remember the show Wizard Wars with Penn and Teller.
Yes,
That was the
that's right.
first show I did. And that was like Chris Ramsey. And that was before Chris Ramsey was Chris Ramsey.
That's
And,
awesome.
we were all rehearsing in front of each other. And I was like, Chris, aren't you a close-up guy? Like, you're killing it with the stage stuff. And he was such a good performer. And then he was partnered up with Spidey, and then I was with Nathan Kranzo. And that was the first TV show I did. And then I did, a bunch of other ones after that. And now I do like Masters of Illusion every summer. And then there was we're working on something else with Netflix right now that got halted in production because of the coronavirus stuff.
Oh,
But
that
yeah, man.
sucks.
Yeah. So basically I had only been interested in doing television and touring. And, my doorbell just rang. It's probably a package or something.
Oh, do you want to? We could stop it.
No, it's all good. It's all good. I'm on like the third floor. I don't want to run all the way down there.
If it's the vanishing bandana, then this will be a whole new level.
Exactly. That's funny. Yeah. So I had never ever considered doing the virtual platform, and so I didn't even really know how to do it. When all of this stuff hit, I wasn't like, I know you've been, because I've watched enough of your stuff. Like I watched, some of your things about like when you're behind the scenes with Fool Us, which was awesome, by the way.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah,
We've been trying
and
the space, dabbling in
yeah,
it here and there, but the live streaming it's really blossomed. Like now, everybody's. I
right.
feel like you've got to have that as a solution on your site, or you're not hip
Yeah,
or
exactly.
current.
Yeah. Yeah, I just didn't know how it was. What happened was once the pandemic kind of hit, I decided I was like, okay, I got to, we got to kind of adapt, because my year this year was really good. I was doing a lot of, a lot of live touring, more. Yeah, you know how we kind of project whenever we're going to be touring and that kind of thing. And we look at, 9 months from now and we're like, oh, we're good, for all these months. And my entire year was really good like that. And so when this stuff hit and all the dates and the theater shows and the cruises and everything was getting canceled, I knew that I had to adapt. And so I quickly knew that the virtual platform was the way to do it. And then now it's so funny because just this month alone, I'm doing like 20 virtual shows, which
I
is
saw on
insane.
Instagram your event listing for April. It's
Yeah.
wild, man. Everyone else is
Yeah.
kind of lost gigs, and it looks like you're rocking them all out still. It's great. Tell us about
Yeah.
some of the stuff you're doing.
Yeah, so basically, what happened, I definitely lost gigs, and just like everybody else, and I was in the same boat as everybody else, and it was really scary, and I didn't know what was going to happen. And so kind of what I did was I put my head together with my manager and my agent, and my main agent is a guy I've been with for like 10 years, and he's a creative like me, and he always thinks outside of the box. He represented Justin Willman when Justin Willman got his start. He was his Justin, that was his first agent, that was his first client kind of thing. And so he already knew how to work with like a magician, especially a magician who does, things kind of like, on like the comedy and that personality, side of things, which
Absolutely.
is like more like Justin and I were big into just our personalities. And that's what gets us all of our bookings really is our personalities.
Right.
And so a lot of magicians have called me and asked, and they've been like, are you just taking shows that you already had booked and you're just doing those, like, and just changing it? That only happened with one show. Which is shocking, to think about, because all the other shows got deferred to the summer. I mean, at the fall. I'm sorry.
Right.
And so, because a lot of these were colleges, and so a lot of the colleges got moved to the fall. So really, what this was immediately putting our heads together. We were at an APCA conference, which is the Association for the Promotion of Campus Activities. I was there with a bunch of other performers and magicians, a bunch of magicians, guys you probably know, and we
you
were all
recently won too, didn't you? Didn't I see that as well?
Yeah, I won. Yeah,
Congratulations.
thanks, buddy.
Magician of the
Yeah.
Year. That's really
Magician
great.
of the Year in the college market. Yeah, pretty cool. Yeah, I was really stoked about that because I've been in the college market for like 10 years. So it was a big honor. And it's funny because when I started in the college market, looking at all these guys, being like, I want to be like them, and winning the award was really cool. So yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, congratulations. That's awesome, man.
Thanks, man. So yeah, so I was with all these guys and we're all looking at each other like with our agents watching our shows drop off. And we're like, oh my God, and some of these guys, guys who have kids like me, and, we have mortgages, and we were
Right.
like, what are we going to do? And some of the guys are like, oh, I have savings. I'll be okay for a couple months. And then some of the guys are like, I just did a remodel on my house or whatever,
Right.
and we weren't expecting this. So for me, the first thing I said, we all kind of sat at a table at this conference. And I said, why don't we just try and do the stuff, online, like virtual shows, which I had no idea how to do. I don't know how to do that. So I was like, but this could be a cool way to do it. And for somebody like me, I bet you're this way. You seem to be this way. Um, that if you don't know how to do something, you're going to figure it out and you're going to
If
work on it until you figure it out.
if there's enough passion, you'll definitely figure it out. Yeah, yeah. I'm willing to spend any amount of time as long as I'm really passionate about it, for sure.
It's so funny because even when I was in school, I got bad grades on the classes I wasn't passionate about, and then
Right.
the classes I was passionate about, I got good grades on. And that's what's so funny about us as artists and magicians. And I know I could say this about like Spidey, that he's the kind of guy where like for a while, his YouTube channel was starting to blow up, and for a while he was like, when the pandemic hit, he's like, I'm not doing anything. I'm just, I'm sitting at home, and I don't have the passion to do it because I'm so sad about everything
Right.
that's going on.
Totally.
And so he's like, I have to have the passion to be able to do it. I know Shin Lim is like that. Spidey's like best friends with Shin Lim. And
Right.
he talks about how whenever he doesn't feel passionate, he doesn't feel like he can do anything in that moment.
Right.
So basically, I knew we had to try and still perform, and performing is, what I do. And, I'm an entertainer and I'm an artist, and I'm a performer. And number one, I'd say even before magician, I mean, magic is what I'm passionate about. It's the outlet. But before the magic, even, I'm a performer.
Right.
And I've always felt like it kind of has to be that way.
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah.
It's art when you put the showmanship first, I think. There's
Exactly.
a total appreciation for like the technical magician marvel, like total, like Di Vernon was clearly not like a showman at nature, but he was like a technical genius. So
Right.
there's room for both. And I
Right.
fall in the same category as you. I'm like a showman or performer first. I love
Yeah, I know
that.
you are. I was just going to comment on that. I really love, people always ask me, and I'm sure people ask you this when you do interviews and stuff. People always ask me who your favorite magicians are, or who you're inspired. Do you love David Blaine? And they ask the same type of questions. But I always say I'm inspired by my friends. And what's really cool about that is the people that I tend to gravitate towards are those people who, we happen to be magicians. Magic happens to be what we're passionate about. But really, I mean, we could have done a lot of things in entertainment, a lot of things, like that's why you're so good with being on camera. That's why you're so, you have a very charismatic presence. Your voice is very, commanding, and you've got a great personality, and all these things come together. And we really could have done anything. Um,
It's so interesting you say that, because you see in the live space world, the ones that are really succeeding in all of the live streams are the ones that have learned how to connect on camera. And
yep.
that's something that magicians particularly can excel at. Like it's something among all of the industries, like musicians and writers. This is the one that
Right.
we've been most prepared for.
Right.
I mean, and it
Yeah.
also, one of the arguments, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this, is one of the things I've been seeing in a negative space is people saying like you start to see some who's really rising to the top among
Oh yeah, man.
who can really perform and who's
Oh
just,
yeah, man.
yeah,
Bro, I've been in that that space for years now, where when people meet me, they go, "Oh, you're a really nice guy," and they're like, "Oh, okay, he's got a great personality and all this." Because I have seen, you know, when, okay, here's a good example. Justin Willman was in the college market, and he was winning all these awards before I was in it, and before he got all his big notoriety and stardom that he very much deserves. And whenever he started in the market, he would go to these NACA and APCA conferences, which a lot of us go to. Like the Evisons are there all the time, and Peter Bois and Daniel Martin and all these great
okay.
magicians.
Yeah,
Dale Kay, oh yeah, Dale, I love Dale,
yeah.
and all these great performers, magicians, hypnotists. And when Justin started, all of these magicians were busting their asses doing finger bending, finger flicking, and hardcore sleight of hand, and really concentrating on their patter. And Justin was booking tons of shows, right? Tons of
Right,
shows with sponge bunnies.
right.
with sponge bunnies. He
Yep.
wouldn't bring anything. He did nothing but sponge bunnies. So when I got into the college market, and my agent was the same agent who, him and Justin really worked together to really develop his personality, his show, and all of this, in his early 20s. And my agent was like, when I came in, he goes, listen, you're a great magician technically. You're very good technically. Because I was showing him all this, hardcore sleight of hand and these things I was good at. He goes, but I want to concentrate on what your personality is, who Joel Meyers is as an artist and a performer, and your personality. And that's what I really realized, was the most important thing really early on. And that's what, you get the guys who have the most success are the guys with the big personality.
How do people practice that? Like I asked Nick Lewin, who is a notably funny magician, if
Right.
magicians who aren't funny can learn to be funny. His response that
Right.
they can be funnier, I thought was perfect. In this case, we're asking magicians to be more likable or more personable. How do people practice that?
Uh,
I know,
I
right?
think that's a good question. I think people being more likable or more personable, that's a really hard thing to fake. I think. I think you either are or you aren't in a way.
Mhm.
People ask, I'm sure you get this in interviews and stuff where people will say, were you born with this or did you develop it? The ability to do magic. I think the aspect that I was born with, the aspect that you were born with, is the likability and the personality. And for whatever reason, being bit by the bug. And so, like we were talking about before, being passionate about it. And that makes us really go after it. But I think the actual, you know, uh, I don't think you can fake likability. I think an
Yeah.
audience can see through that in 2 seconds, and whether it's an audience or of 1,000 people in a theater or three people that you're doing close up stuff for, I think they could see right through that.
I agree. It feels too
Yeah,
salesy. It's like a salesperson when you try to fake it. I think the best advice we've all ever been given is just to be the most authentic. If you put
I
something in
think
front of it,
the
it's
most
a
authentic
facade.
version of ourselves, like you're saying. Yeah, I would
Yeah.
definitely agree with that. Yeah,
And that's
yeah. To
harder on
be
camera.
Oh yeah, yeah. I tell you what, man. I've heard, and I did an interview the day before yesterday, and a lot of magicians were asking questions because it was a live thing, and they'd type the questions in, and the a lot of people were asking and talking about how they're like, you're performing at a camera, you're not performing for an audience, and magic needs an audience. Even when we do magic on television, which we know this because we've done plenty of magic on TV, when we do magic on TV, we still have some sort of an audience, whether it's street magic style, you still have people there, whether it's Masters of Illusion style where there's an audience there, or America's Got Talent or Fool Us like we've both done. There's an audience there. And so doing it virtually, the biggest thing that I'm hearing, and I'm hearing it from some of my favorite magicians, a lot of them are old school, but there's still guys that we have mad respect for and we grew up watching. And they're like, you have to perform for an audience, so it's stupid to perform at a camera. And so I would say the biggest thing I'd want people to take away from the virtual platform, the biggest misconception that they're not seeing, is that you are still performing to an audience. And what you do is, if you do it right, you set up a couple of iPads or monitors or laptop or whatever, and you can see the people. Now, the other day I did a virtual show for 350 people, so you can't see all 350 people on that. That was at Colorado School of Mines, and so that was a huge one.
That's great.
Tomorrow I'm doing Wilkes-Barre University in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and that's like probably going to be like 30 people or something like that. And then uh, yesterday I did Ohio State, and that was like 10 people. And so when there's 10 people, you could see them all on the screen.
Sure.
So what I do is I say, right out the gate, I say there's two really important things I want you guys to keep in mind before we even get started. Number one, if you could turn your cameras on, I'd really appreciate it. If you feel comfortable to turn your cameras on, because then that way I could see your reactions, and it's as though I was performing for you guys right here in my, in my home, and we were together right now. I could see your reactions. So if you feel comfortable doing that, please do that. When I do that, I see most of the cameras start to turn on.
That's
Okay,
awesome.
so then I have an audience. So that whole debate is about every magician saying the virtual. There's no audience. There is an audience. That they haven't. They're saying that because they haven't done it. They don't know.
Right.
And then I say the second thing. I say if you don't have any background noise, which this is always tough because you don't always know if you have background noise. I say if you don't have any background noise, you could feel free to unmute yourself. Now, what I do is I generally, whoever's hosting the event, whoever's in charge of it, they're in charge of the Zoom call. And so they control who's being muted and who's not. And a lot of times I can say, like, if it's a group of 300 people, I can't say unmute
Right.
yourselves.
Right.
Everybody's going to hear something. So I have the host person, on the call. I say, okay, so I need somebody's help, guys. Raise your hands, and they'll put the little hand emoji in the chat, and you see 10 of them, popping up at one time. Okay, let's pick Laura. Laura, how you doing? Let's unmute Laura. And I say it just like that. They unmute. Laura, what's going on? How's it going? Oh my gosh, you look so fun. Where are you? What are you doing
That's
today?
really
You having
great.
fun? Were you excited about the event? I'm interacting with the people. And so
Right.
that whole debate is completely squashed right there. There was a whole blog on it about the debate about you're not performing for people in the virtual shows.
This
It's
is
not true.
the dynamic is still there. It's still a show. This is on such a I bet the connection level here is so much stronger. This is never going to
It's
fade
intimate,
away.
Ryan. It's
It really
intimate.
is. It's just
That's the
never
best
going to
word.
fade away. This, like, we will still, well, what are your predictions for the future?
So I work in multiple markets, so I'm really I was really scared at first, and I woke up this morning to my college agent messaging me, panicking, going, "Look at these articles talking about whether the colleges are going to come back in the fall. Oh my gosh, we might have to do these virtual shows." Which the virtual shows were the price is cut in half, so we're still making money, but it's half, you
Right.
know, what we normally make. So he's like, "Oh my god!" So normally we make a lot of money doing the college shows, and in this, he's like, "Oh my god." Meanwhile, my cruise agents are like, the cruises aren't going to just stop; they're going to go out at the moment they can. And I do a lot of cruises as well as you do.
Right. Right.
So my prediction for this virtual platform is exactly what you just said. Is this is a new medium that is not only is it not going to go away, but even whenever the pandemic is done, and whether they bring back the live theater stuff in the fall or whenever, and then they go, oh, you got to sit 2 seats away from each other, or some kind of social distancing stuff. This will still be, now this is another platform to do it. I am literally working with 5 different agencies right now, and we're all scrambling to work on different ways of doing this. I just got a message this morning saying, hey, there's this company wants you to do 15 minutes. They want you to do the virtual stuff, and then they want you to teach something at the end, but they want to know how you could do it to where it's like, an HD camera kind of thing. And they're like asking all this specific stuff. And can you teach a magic trick with no props? Because they don't want them to tell them to bring cards or rubber bands or whatever,
Right.
and they're asking that kind of stuff. And I'm like, sure, I can do stuff with just your hands or your fingers or something like that. I could, sure, I just say yes to everything.
Right, right, right.
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
There it
that's it.
is. Joel's
Yeah,
best advice in the business. Just say yes to
yes.
everything.
And I tell you what, man, I got calls from probably, like, I swear to God, a dozen magicians, and some of these guys are really, creative and big names, and they call me going, "How the hell are you doing? Like, what? Like, how are you doing that? How do they pick a card? How do they, And I'm like, dude, just think about it for a second. Somebody's
Yep.
standing in front of you, and you don't want them to touch your cards. How do they pick a card? Like, think
Right.
about it. You're
Right.
not thinking outside of the box, and
Right.
and that's the biggest thing. I know guys like you and me, there's enough guys who do immediately adapt to a situation, and they'll think outside of the box, and that's what you got to do with this. So I'll take a trick, like, for example, I never do it's a great trick, but I never do cardiographic.
Right.
In general, I don't do it just because it's it's a little bit older, and
Yeah.
and a lot of guys do it, so I don't do it unless I could take it and make it something newer. So for example, I'll do the floating table within the concept of a seance, and I did that on Masters of Illusion. And it was completely unique because I did it like a giant Ouija board where the table was the planchette moving to the letters of a name somebody's thinking of. So it makes it more creative. So if I could take an old concept and make it fresh and new and something that other magicians and other people go, wow, I've never seen that, then I'll do it. But the cardiographic, I was like, this might be good for the virtual stuff because I can do a drawing right in front of them. I can have them think of a card. And then mess it up. And then at the end, I say, you're going to DM me your address, and we're going to send this drawing to you, and I'm going to sign it so it's the same drawing. And people are like, wait, what? You know what I mean? So I'm trying to think a little bit outside of the box with how to do it. You see what I'm saying?
It's fun. That adds a new layer, a new challenge for magicians. I think this is going to be our stage is here.
It's really becoming something, and we've got to figure out. Here's a few things I'm learning from the amount of shows that I'm doing with this, because I'm booking enough to where I'm really getting an experience. Like, I'm experiencing, something where I'm getting some expertise on it to an extent. And something that I'm really learning about is, aspects of, like, do you perform with a backdrop? Like right now I'm doing this with my banner behind me, but like, in general, I prefer not to have that. I like them to see, they already know they're at my house. I'm not
Right.
going to fake it. Now, in your situation, you know what you're doing with your background and everything, so it looks really good. I would do it like that. Like what you're doing looks really, really good if you can keep it in this one frame. But it depends also on what you're doing. If you need to go from one angle to another angle, like further away down to close up and all of that, how do you do that and maintain this look? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and lighting, but really it's about you and the personality. Okay, I'll finish off here with I'll try to five random rapid questions. Okay, so number one, name your first mentor.
My first mentor, probably, I would say Daryl. When I met him at a lecture, and he helped me a lot, and right out the gate, and then he kind of just followed up with me and made sure because I was a little kid, I was 7, and so he was following up with me on it. He talked to my parents and talked to me on the phone every once in a while. So
What a great
Daryl. So
first
yeah,
mentor.
it was a really
Wow.
good first mentor. Yeah, I was very blessed.
Your most watched childhood magic special or routine?
These are good questions, man. Just like,
Well, in my age, it would be a
like you're
VCR.
good.
So
You know?
I don't know. I
First,
think you would be past the VCR point, right? You like, I
no,
was.
I did the VCR thing.
Oh,
I
you
did the
did. Yeah,
VCR thing. Yeah, yeah. How old do you think I am, man?
yeah. Well, I'm 40 next year, so I would imagine you're probably like 30, 32 to 35 ish.
I'm 33. Yeah, I'm
Okay,
33.
okay.
But my wife's 26, but she looks like she's 20. So she makes me look younger when she's hanging out with me. She looks really
Oh,
young.
good.
So yeah, so my first magic special was World's Greatest Magic, and I watched that religiously. Like
That's
recorded on
awesome.
the VHS tapes. I'd watch David Williamson and Michael Finney, and one of the coolest moments too was later on. I was doing a show in Phoenix, and I look out in the audience. I'm like, I swear that guy looks like Michael Finney, just sitting out in the audience. And then afterwards, the guy comes up to me. I'm like, oh my god, you're Michael Finney, and I used to watch him all the time. And he told me he was like a fan of my stuff, and he's seen me on TV and all this. And I'm like,
Oh,
what? And I was like bugging out for
how
that.
cool is that,
Like, but you're
man?
Michael Finney, man.
Had you known before, though, it probably would have been more stressful.
Yeah.
Third question: strangest place you've ever been asked to perform magic?
Oh God, I have a few. On a moving bus.
Oh yeah,
That was really weird. I had to stand up and perform on a moving bus. Of course, an airplane. That's happened several times on
yep.
airplane. For like the whole group on the airplane. Those were kind of similar though.
Those are
Gosh.
good.
Oh, the weirdest. Those are good answers, right? I've had some weird ones, man. The craziest one was in a hot air balloon because I helped the guy propose to his girlfriend in a hot air balloon, and I had to make the ring appear in a hot air balloon, which was so weird because when you think about it, they had their little romantic moment, and I'm still in the hot. Where am I gonna go?
Yeah, you're kind of like backing away to the.
Yeah, like I'm gonna shoot off now. Bye, guys.
Oh my
I'm like,
god,
all right, you
that's
guys back out
awesome.
now. It
Yeah,
was weird, yeah.
awkward. Yeah. Okay.
Awkward magician.
Name of trick or routine that caused you the most embarrassment.
So when I first started doing the straight jacket was the most embarrassing because there's a rhythm to the straight jacket whenever you're doing just a straight jacket. When you're doing the straight jacket without any kind of, illusion or like the jaws of death or something like that,
Sure.
when you're just on stage with the jacket, they put you in it. It took me a while to find that rhythm to where I'm like, oh, this is a comedy routine and it's hilarious. And they roll laughing whenever you have the right jokes and the right routining with it and the right people on stage with it, getting put in it alone, just the getting put in it process.
Right.
So the most awkward was that. I thought, oh, I've got to do what Houdini did and roll around on the ground and bang my head against the walls and pretend like I'm in pain. And that was definitely awkward. He would sit there like, and then there were times where because I wanted it to look authentic, where I would use really tight jackets and then I couldn't get out. I'm like, I want it to look authentic. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome. Yeah. Then one final word of hope or message, some optimism to conclude.
So I would say, as magicians, the old Arthur C. Clarke quote, any advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, he's got so many good ones. Absolutely.
Yes. But that made me realize that we as magicians, our job is to adapt and to change with the times. And that is our job. And if you look at some of the top magicians in the world, they've all done that. Copperfield did that with each thing. He goes, oh, now I got to adapt it this way. Now I got to use iPhones and do more, interaction in that way. And so this is just another thing. And so the virtual platform, it's we have to adapt. That's our job as magicians. Our job is not to just do the same magic tricks in the same ways. Our job is to adapt. And so I would say, as long as you're constantly realizing that that is our job as magicians, then we're gonna be good. We're all gonna be good. We're all gonna be great, because this is just another platform. And if you think about it, like, this is just another platform. It's another opportunity, man. We have another opportunity of a way to perform, which is fantastic, because even whenever we go back to live performing, this will still be a thing. And to me, that's such a positive thing.
Joel, thanks so much for spending your time and wisdom with us. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks, buddy. I had a great time.